Welcome back to Make Good Choices Monday. I'm Becky Amio, and if you're up for hearing the story about the first time I broke my arm, stick around. It's going to be a good time. So I was 2 weeks fresh out of graduating from college with my master's degree, ready to take over the world with my animal science degree. And I was put in a first ride on a gelding, and I had done all the groundwork I could think of. Boy, this sucker was so quiet. He was so nice. We had gotten to the point where we were putting black trash bags attached to the saddle with cans in them, just shaking, and he didn't care about any of it. And I was just starting to dip my toe into starting my own colt, so I didn't have a whole lot of experience, like maybe 5 at this point. Up until that point, everything was already horses that were broke that I was going on with or had kind of been riding for a while. And this gelding got on him, and he was absolutely quiet and absolutely fine, and had the bit on him and trying to steer him around, and he didn't really know how to go forward, and so I'm trying to spank him on the butt, and I'm trying to spank him on the neck and spank him on the butt and alternate, and he didn't know what the heck I was asking for. And at one point I was trying to turn his head, and he wouldn't go that direction. I was trying to spank with my stick on the outside and pull his head that direction, and he didn't know what I was asking of him, and he reared up. At the time, it felt like wild stallion rearing in the air, okay? If you can imagine what goes through your brain. And all I did was slip off the back and land on the ground wrong. That's it. Wish I had a better story for you. Laying there on the ground. And to me, let me tell you, the impact of the fall felt like this damn horse threw me against the rail, and I bounced off the rail like he was some rank outlaw. That's what it felt like, and it's so funny now to look back at what your mind and your body tell you versus what the people who are there watching actually see, because it's not the same thing, let me tell you. So when I try to reflect on my accidents, I try to have like this out-of-body experience and really reflect and go through the accident over and over and over again from lots of different directions. At any rate, I'm laying there on the ground, and this left arm is pointed back the opposite direction it's supposed to go, okay? If you can't handle gruesome, you might want to fast forward or unsubscribe now. Fortunately, I did not have a compound fracture, so lucky me. My boyfriend, I still remember the look on his face when he walked over and looked at me on the ground. And I was trying to think about the best way to describe it to you guys, because I couldn't decide if it was frustrated or discouraged with me or scared. It wasn't scared. He looked at me and he was so defeated, like, oh, what the hell am I gonna do with this now? And he leaned down and he put my arm back in the correct direction it was supposed to go. And you could kind of hear some scraping of the bones when, sorry if that bothers you guys just a little bit, but I don't think you'd be here if you weren't a little bit entertained by some of these stories. So he puts my arm back in the correct position. And he helps me up to a sitting position. Horse is just standing there. He's really not riled up by anything, okay? And I'm kind of in a shock at first. Our neighbors had just been down to visit with us. Like, they were leaving the yard when this happened. And they kind of heard the commotion, and they came running back, and they helped get me into the house, and I was sitting there on the couch and in the walkway, and it was a hot day. It was the 4th of July, if I remember correctly, and they helped pull my half chaps off, and I'm pretty sure I was wearing my helmet at the time. They pulled my helmet off of me. I remember I was in a t-shirt. This is where I think if you ever come to the aid of somebody that is in some sort of distress or in some sort of injury or accident or whatnot, what you say to them is so important, because I will never forget what my neighbor's boyfriend said to me when, or he actually didn't say it to me, he said it to them while I was sitting there. It was like, hello guys, I'm still awake, I can still hear what you're saying. And I was feeling really pukey. I mean, that really hot feeling you get when you break something or you hurt something really bad. And I'm laying there on the couch and they're pulling my half chaps off, and he looks up at me. I remember him looking up at me in my eyes, and as he starts to put his head back down, he goes, we're gonna lose her, she's starting to pass out. And for whatever reason, I stayed awake, but I'll never forget the look in his eyes, like he was really genuinely scared of my condition, and he wasn't being the strongest person in the room, if you know what I mean. So he got his pickup, he drove, my boyfriend was in the front seat, and my neighbor, she was in the back seat, and she was holding my arm the whole time, all the way to the emergency room. And I went in, and they put me in immediately into a room, and they came in and asked me, do you hurt bad enough for a pill, or hurt bad enough for a shot? And by this point, I'd had several of my sinus surgeries, so I knew the difference between what pain meds did. And I said, no, I'm ready for the shot. I need the shot. And they gave me a shot to help. I mean, I completely numbed out at that point. And they were going to try to take my shirt off over my head. And I'm like, just cut it off. And I remember having to get up and go to the bathroom, and just how, okay, this might be too much information, you guys, but women, you can understand. So I sat down to go to the bathroom, and I had my arm across my body, and I'm gonna have to zoom the camera in probably for this. You know what? Hang on. I'm gonna get a chair. I'll be right back. Okay, so I had to go to the restroom, and I'm sitting on the toilet, and I'm holding my arm like this. And I'd been giving that pain medication that made me pretty numb to everything. And when I went to stand up, I did this, and my arm went like that, kind of flung for a second. My brain was telling it to stay right there, but it couldn't hold itself right there. So the humerus bone was broke like that, okay? Instead of being up here, it was broke like that. I don't know how it wasn't a compound fracture. The orthopedic surgeon came in, and he said, you know, cocky little dude, he came in and he said, you know, if you just kind of let it hang, it might just heal itself. And they wrapped me up in this wrap, sent me home with pain meds, and sent me to another major public hospital to be seen by that orthopedic surgeon. And I can't remember if I went in for a consultation or if they just, I think they might have just looked at my x-rays, and the orthopedic surgeon there said, yeah, we need to do surgery on that. At any rate, it took them 2 weeks before they did surgery on me. Partially because I didn't have insurance, and I think it was also because it was public health care. And even they got the time wrong as far as what time my appointment was. I did all the pre-work where they do the blood work and all your medical history like the day before your surgery, and they told me to be there at 1 o'clock for surgery, which is really a weird time to come in for surgery. And I got there, I don't know, I think we got there at about 12:30, and the surgeon came through, and he said, and he patted me on my shoulder, and he said, Rebecca, glad to see you. You're supposed to be here at 10 o'clock this morning. And I'm like, they told me to be here at 1. And my mom and my boyfriend were there with me. And they went to go set me up for surgery. And, you know, I have never been one that's ever been afraid of surgery. I've had lots of sinus surgeries. I've had lots of, you know, appendix taken out, that sort of stuff. But this was probably the first time I was actually scared going into surgery, and I'm not really sure why. I think it was because when they were prepping me, they told me it was going to be a really, really long surgery. And it was. I think they had me out for over 5 hours. They put a 9-hole plate in there to put this thing back together. And there's a lot of screws and pins and stuff wired up, putting things back together. And, you know, the elbow was not involved at all. It was strictly the humerus. I have a big old gnarly scar down the back of my arm. And they sent me home. And it was quite possibly the most pain I've ever been in my life. Next to the most recent foot surgery I've had. But yeah, all pain to this day is compared to that. Like, does it hurt that bad? And if it hurts that bad, then I know, okay, we need to go do something about it. Or, you know, I always compare it to breaking my arm. From, you know, the time they took me to the hospital through wrapping me up and sending me home for 2 weeks and not doing surgery on it for 2 weeks, and then giving me a 3-month prognosis. Now, when they sent me out of the hospital, they sent me out without any sort of wrap, no cast, nothing. They said, that plate in there is your cast. Don't screw it up. Now, prior to going into surgery, I had full use of my hand. I might have had my arm across my chest like that, across my stomach, but I had full use of my hand. When I came out of surgery, couldn't use my hand. It was stuck in this position. Couldn't move it. And it was swollen. Everything was like a sausage. And I didn't know why. Nobody told me why my hand would be like that. Nobody told me that my rehabilitation would be mainly the fine motor skills it took to open this hand back up. Nobody told me that my elbow being bent in this position was going to stay like that, and I would have to do rehabilitation to be able to break it up and open it up and do that again with it. There was no preparation whatsoever. I started rehab almost immediately, and in between rehab, I was going to the local gym, and since I was fresh out of college, I didn't have a job yet, and I was going to the local gym, and I would get on the elliptical and do this and try to just break this up as much as I could. And then I went to rehab. I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 times a week, and they would have me do, it seems so silly, they would have me take these little pins and put them in the, you know, the little games where you stick the pin in the hole and you play tic-tac-toe and you design stuff and all sorts of little things like that, just trying to open this sucker back up. And the rehab technician, he would work on the scar and try to break that up as much as he could to help with that sort of pain. I couldn't put a bra on. I couldn't put my hands up over my head to put a ponytail up. That was my biggest thing in my life. Again, find somebody that can wash your hair, ladies. Find somebody that will do a good job washing your hair. So I have a little niece. She's about 12 years younger than me. She came and stayed with me for about 2 weeks after surgery, and she helped me put my bra on, button my pants, wash my hair, all of that sort of stuff. I felt useless sitting inside the house. I couldn't even turn horses out. I remember trying to put halters on horses, and I'm going to have to zoom out for this one. Hang on a second. So my little niece didn't know how to put a halter on a horse, and I want to say she was about 8 years old at the time. I can't remember if she was 8 or if she was 12. I think she was 8. But so I'm out there trying to put a halter on a horse. Think fat fingers, I can only kind of grab like this, and my arm's kind of stuck like this, and I couldn't raise my hand to put the halter on the horse. And so what I was doing was I was taking my leg and trying to shove my arm up with my leg to try to get the halter on the horse. And it was ridiculous. And I think I only was able to do it with one horse that was, you know, willing to put his head down and cooperate with me. But I'm trying to do this number, trying to get a halter on, and that wasn't working out either. So that was part of my motivation to rehab as quickly as possible. So I had a lot of time to reflect on this one. I had 3 months. just kept on going. I did my rehab diligently. I did not go to an appointment. I went to the gym all the time trying to train my body to be better. And it took a really long time. And even to this day, occasionally, this hand will kind of like a locking feeling. Like I'll be telling it to open up and I'm like, open up. And thankfully I'm right-handed, but I am very ambidextrous when it comes to everything that I do. A lot of people will ask me if I'm left-handed when they watch me do something, because generally it's something that a right-hand dominant person would do it that way. And ever since I was really young, even when I played softball, I batted left-handed. And so I kind of learned, and also, catching, fielding ground balls, everything was left-handed. So I had to learn how to work, both sides of my body evenly from day one. So, reflection time. You guys ready for this one? So upon reflection, for all the groundwork that I did with this horse, I never ground drove him. I can't remember how long I made him even wear the bit for. I never ground drove him. I never bitted him around. I never taught him how to give his head one direction or the other with the bit in his mouth. Is that the silliest thing you've ever heard? I mean, I never taught him, I never worked on making him give his head back and forth with a halter on. I mean, I know a lot of folks don't start with a bit on their very first ride, so they get the horse giving their head back and forth with a halter. Well, I don't recall ever having him do that whatsoever. He was not a rank outlaw by any means. It was a little half-assed rear where I slipped off the back, and my arm just landed the opposite direction. And I had this great, big, massive ego that I still have to this day. And it just got knocked down a few notches. And I was coming off graduating college with my master's degree. I was coming off winning this huge title on my purebred Arabian mare that was just a feat in itself that nobody else has ever done. I was coming off, starting these other horses, and I had this new mare that I talked to you guys about last week. I had this new mare that was just bred to the nines, and so I couldn't be stopped. And, somebody decided, the universe, whatever you believe in, decided I needed to kind of be squashed a little bit. The ego is the enemy. I needed to knock it back a few notches. And you're going to hear a lot more stories about my ego in the stories to come in the upcoming weeks, because every time my ego has gotten way out of control, it has not gone well for me. So I tried to keep that checked back as much as I possibly can. So, upon reflection, I got back on this horse and I started him. And he came along really, really nice. Worked the basic handle. This was 2003. Didn't have a whole lot of pictures. Didn't have a whole lot of video of him. I don't have very many pictures of him to this day. Have lots and lots and lots of great memories with him. He's a horse that I went on to do some amazing things with barrel racing. He became my number one. I went through a period of, eventually that boyfriend and I broke up, and I went through a period of time with this horse where he paid some bills for me, and he would make enough money to pay his entry fees into the next race and pay our fuel so we could keep going, and sometimes pay my fuel so we could go back and forth to work. I gave riding lessons on him, and those riding lessons helped pay for us to enter up again. Just a solid all-around gelding, just so forgiving and so kind. And at that time, he was the best horse that I could get. He was the best horse that I deserved. He was the best I could do, so I had to make the absolute most of that situation. And if this isn't for a feel-good kind of way to wrap up this story, that horse, when I outgrew him and I was ready to move on to my next big prospect, he sold over to a family in Minnesota with 2 little girls that were just starting to get in from junior high to high school. And shoot, now they're in college now, and I hear from them all the time, and they send me pictures of them all the time. And I never told them this story. And I was pulling out a book to read that I'd already read this past winter here about a month ago. I do a lot more reading in the winter than I get to in the summertime because, you know, we have, you know, shorter days, longer nights, and bad weather. And so I pulled out this book, and, you know, occasionally we leave bookmarks in our books. And I pulled out this piece of paper, and it says, "First, Becky in the 1D." And that was on this horse. And I know it was on him because it says on the other side, it says, "This brand new event from the town of Apple Valley is all about the horse at the beautiful Horseman Center." And the Horseman Center was a community riding arena that I rode at with him, and I gave the riding lessons there. So anyway, you guys, sorry for having to come apart on you, but I just thought that was a pretty good little story to share with you this week. So I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week, and I hope you make good choices today.